Okay, Red Fens. Hey. Hello there, how are we doing? Yes, did we enjoy watching the last video? Yes, the one all about book one being morose. Yes, yes, yes. Doesn't put us off at all. No, we're going to do book two anyway. So come on.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
Just sorting this out.
yes, yes, yes. There we go.
So here we are. Yes.
So, book two,
Yes, book two.
raise a glass.
This was the book that followed book one.
Usually.
We were going to do book four next and just catch you all out, but we decided to do book three, which we will talk about when we've finished it.
Again adorned with the wonderful artwork of Mr. John Dolan, this time on the back sporting the same picture as book one's cover, but this time the artist's rendering done by John Dolan, and a wonderful little chap down here.
Yes. If you look on the side, you get a very stretched version of the same thing,
Yes.
and only £8.99.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
there we are.
Or available. Yes.
From the butchers.
Yes, okay. Now, same as last time, we're going to do a little brief resume of each of the 6 stories. This time the book was introduced by 4 words from Russell Woodward. Yes.
Yes.
What a guy.
Who I was supposed to be ringing this evening.
Well,
I might just do after we've done this.
Why not while we're doing this?
Yeah, that's a great idea, yes.
Okay.
I'm sure
So,
people love that.
after that, we have the 6 stories in book 2, and we're going to give a little resume of each of those, and we've got a short piece that we're going to read from one of them,
Yes.
as and when we get to that.
And here she is.
And here she is. She's only small. Chapter 1, The Stench is Spread,
Yes.
which was all about Morose has finally had all of the evil ways he's been treating his body catch up with him, and he's spending time in hospital. And while he's in the hospital, conveniently, murders start happening
In the hospital.
in the hospital.
As far as I remember, it was to do with a party of tourists from
Yes.
the former Yugoslav area,
Yes.
and we had to spend a lot of time whilst we were writing this looking up words in Yugoslav,
Yes, that's right, we did. I'd forgotten about that. Wow.
and
Yes.
also to stir up a lot of sectarian hatred in that area. We've used various symbols and vile phrases.
So, any more trouble that kicks off out there, it's probably our fault.
Entirely our fault, yes.
So that's what The Stench is Spread was all about. We then moved on to Chapter 2, The Settling of the Scum.
Which was based on the original Morse story, The Setting of the Sun, about the murder of a Methodist minister, was he? No, he was a Church of England minister.
But it linked in with, again, with torturing and...
Yes, there was a sort of warlike theme to the first
Yeah.
2 stories, which we
Yeah.
didn't actually intend to happen. As with the original by Colin Dexter, we've included the idea that the minister had served in the Far East and had been tortured as a prisoner guest of the Imperial Japanese Army. A subject a bit closer to my heart than maybe it should be with my dad's experiences. But we have actually completely destroyed the credibility of the original by Colin Dexter by throwing in a few ridiculous ideas of our own.
Such as the donkeys.
Donkey smuggling.
Donkey
that's right.
smuggling, yes.
Carrying donkeys around in broad daylight and nobody making any comment on it.
Donkeys
and-
being smuggled into Oxford College.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, for no apparent real good reason,
Yes.
I don't think.
And the daughter of the aforementioned minister being an enthusiastic flower presser
Yes.
and heavy drinker.
Very enthusiastic. So, of course, she appealed to Morose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chapter 3.
This ain't rock and roll, this is homicide.
This was a story entirely instigated and plotted out by Ian.
Yeah. Let me tell you a little bit about that then. So first of all, the title.
Ian,
this ain't.
Can you
rock
tell
and
us
roll.
about it?
I think I can. Yes, this ain't rock and roll. This is homicide. As I had pointed out by a chap called David Bell, I already knew, but it's a misquote, a deliberate misquote of an introduction that David Bowie gave to one of his songs when he was performing it live. I think I'm right in saying it was Diamond Dogs on the David Live album. He introduces it as "This ain't rock and roll, this is suicide." The story isn't about suicide, it's about murder. So "This ain't rock and roll, this is homicide" worked better as a title.
Yes.
And this was kind of my answer to Lemmy featuring in book one, who is one of Howard's musical heroes. David Bowie, who had just died at the point where we wrote this, has always been one of my musical heroes. So the story is a very slightly veiled parody of Bowie, but Bowie being murdered in this particular story. And if you're a Bowie fan, there's lots of little subtle and not so subtle references to Bowie going through the story as you read it. And yes, the whole thing is about a rock star who gets murdered in his home and R2 regulars being called in to solve the crime. Pretty much is this.
Yes.
Right, yes. Is that your brain over there?
Yes. I can't actually see fuck all with these glasses on, do you know that?
Oh, well, that's good.
Yes.
Putting those ones back on.
Putting these back on again, yes. I feel much better with these.
So that brings us on to...
How I feel, you'll find them much better with these.
The vague time period of the scary chap.
Yes. No, maybe not.
So tell us about the vague time period of the scary chap, Howard.
No.
Oh, all right then. So
This was based on a original by Colin Dexter, which I can't remember the name of. The Day of the Devil?
That's
The Night of the Devil?
The Day of the Devil, I think, was right, or it could have been The Night of the Devil. Yes, something like
I'm
that.
confusing it with Night of the Demon, the film.
Possibly.
Which was probably better. Yeah.
It's all about devil worship.
A chap from a mental hospital, not too far away from the Oxford setting of Morose.
And his relationship with his psychiatrist, Dr. Weeks Wages.
That's correct, yes. Spectacular little quote I want to just throw in, which I've just stumbled across here.
Yes.
Well, witches and so-called devil disciples, you know, these days are all very much more into the power and socialising and sex thing. It's not really about growing horns and burning girls now. Well, that's my interest gone, muttered Morose, getting into a tug of war with the vicar over the communion. So it's more of a club then? Yes, like a Freemasons, but with a bit of life. I'd advise people who want to reform. What, like status quo and Mel and Kim?
I've forgotten all about that. Right. Okay, right. So that's a vague time period of the scary chap. Any the wiser? No,
neither am I.
Okay. So one of my favourite stories out of this book is chapter 5, Mutton Dressed as Lamb of God. When we looked at the
start of this,
yes,
Claudia Harris sat bored off her box, staring at the vague talent show on television.
Yes. There's some lovely pieces in this, such as the name of it's all about it's based from a Colin Dexter story about female priests getting murdered and the link to a weight loss club. Which Howard came up with the wonderful name for it. You have to come up with a name that nobody else is going to have, so you don't get into any trouble with it.
Yes, because we don't want to offend anybody. It's
no.
Weight growers.
No. So we came up with
fattening world or anything like that.
Absolutely. So we came up with our own name, which we don't feel has been used by any.
As far as I'm aware, they haven't used Skinny Bitch World anyway.
Skinny Bitch World, yeah, absolutely. So skinny bitches everywhere. Okay. A lot going on at well, between those two things, really.
There's a big social comment somewhere about women being portrayed as constantly having to lose weight to be socially accepted, and what happens as a result of this, and the multinational people who take full advantage of it, and the police who end up trying to clear up the mess, and the psychiatrists who end up clearing the mess up, and what happens to the people who end up as tramps on the street because they can't cope with the fact that they're women with less than perfect Hello and OK magazine type bodies. The moral is there somewhere, I just can't be asked finding it.
And those bodies that you see in those magazines as well are, of course, airbrushed. So
that's the magazines you read.
I don't read anything. Not even our own books.
He just looks at the pictures.
This story does feature my favourite 3 words in either book, which is Max politely farted.
Yes.
Yeah. Very nice.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. Okay, that moves us on to chapter 6, which unusually for one of our stories takes place immediately after the end of chapter 5. Obviously,
6 follows on from 5.
Yeah, but in this case,
the story carries on.
Kind of, because we have the character Smelly Steve, who at the end of the story has been run over and is left on the ground while the end of story 5 this is while various things are going on, and we then take Smelly Steve's perspective for the start of chapter 6.
We also have Claudia Harris being picked up from Skinny Bitch World for a second time.
We do, absolutely, yeah. So it's all good stuff. The story of the Curse of the Demon Drink actually explains a lot more about some of the characters that we have in these first 12 stories in book 1 and book 2. We've discovered a lot of things about end of level demon Morose along the way, and we know that there's something very dark with Colin Weird. Exactly what their relationship is and why Colin Weird is the superintendent at the Oxford police station, why he's positioned himself there, and what is going on with that gateway into the golf club or whatever, is explained to some degree in that final story in book 2. It also leaves a lot of questions to be answered in book 3, which we've not really done.
We haven't attempted to answer at all. No.
Not massively. We have done a little bit, but not a lot. But yeah, there's still a lot of things to be resolved, but we haven't written story 6 yet, and that's where some of that stuff will be resolved, to be fair to ourselves.
Can I just read a little bit out of this last
story?
Go on then. Harris looked hard at the offering on television. Hugh was right, it was bloody awful. A new series his family had turned off last week, called Walking Someone Else's Dangerous Dog. Worse, this week, apparently out on parole, it featured that creep Chris Trauma, walking what appeared to be a werewolf belonging to this week's Prime Minister. There was a chorus of abuse and a steady hail of bottles aimed at the screen as the show ended with Chris Trauma being carted off to hospital and the hapless monster being shot by a vet with a bazooka. The voiceover that followed announced, and now, in conjunction with the CPS and our solicitors, the return of Crime Watch, with 2 has-beens and the fuzz. There was silence as after the wretched introduction some clapped-out celeb said a few disturbing words, and the camera panned over to a uniformed policeman. "The pigs!" yelled all the drunken police in the police canteen, and the whole lot ran over Robbie, Hugh and the unconscious Morose and ran out of the police station squealing.
There we go. That doesn't put you off buying it, nothing will. Right, we were going to finish this off by doing a reading taking from page 79, I believe, Mr. White.
This is in the Methodist hymn book.
This is the Methodist hymn book, yes, absolutely.
Or for those who work after equality, the Methodist her book.
That's it.
Something I approve of entirely with her like this.
Right, so we're just going to read a page and a bit of this, which is taken from Gosh, which story is it? This is taking
The
from.
second one.
Is it the second story?
Yes.
Right, okay.
The settling of the scum.
Scum. Okay. Harris finally returned home just as his wife and girls were getting up.
Morning.
They all beamed, all bright and happy.
Night.
Muttered Harris.
I'm just off for a kip.
He put his head on the pillow and passed out almost at once. Just as fast he was awoken by Claudia, bringing him a sandwich and a flask of tea. For when you wake up, pet, she smiled, and with a quick kiss on his unwashed forehead, crept quietly out of the room, say that carefully, shutting the door on her hand. Ah! She began, before covering her mouth and creeping outside for a good scream. Robbie started to drift off again and was then aware of the door opening again. Jessica stole up to him and placed an A4 size file on the pillow next to him.
Aye, Daddy, it's for when you wake up. It's my dissertation. I got a B+ for it.
Canny grand. Does that mean your blood group or your academic grade?
Ha ha ha.
She muttered and quietly slipped out of the door because the carpet was greasy and sprained her ankle.
Ah, me
She began, before wrapping her forearm around her mouth and yelling into it. Robbie settled down and his eyelids had just met up when there was a creeping sound and Emily grinned down at him. I've got a new guinea pig.
Huh?
He's called Mr. Chopper and he loves lettuces, and that's Mr. Chopper on the back cover.
Aye, grand lass.
I'll leave him here for you to see when you wake up. Sleep well, Daddy. She placed the squeaky little rodent on the pillow next to him. She went back to the door and, pulling it open, ran her foot over. Whammy! And as her mother had done, covered her mouth, hopped out and pulled the door shut behind her. Robbie pulled the pillow low over his head and wished the earth would swallow him up. The window opened from the outside. Ah, Harris, baby, I've just had a...
The voice trailed off suddenly as Robbie reached out with one arm to the window ledge and pushed the top of the ladder away from the house. There was a scream and a smashing of glass and what sounded like a series of broken vertebrae, and an attempt at muffling the scream that comes with such extensive and mobility-threatening injuries. Back in the room, Mr. Chopper settled down next to Robbie, and the two of them fell into a straw-smelling sleep.
Straw-smelling sleep. Something you don't read every day.
Or smell every day.
And you didn't read today, we did.
Yes.
Right. Okay, but you have the opportunity to read those words.
Yes.
Very easy.
Yes.
All you need to do is either contact me or Howard directly, and we can let you have... You could even have this copy in my hands, or better yet, the copy in Howard's hands, which is damaged.
Yes.
Yeah, you could have either of those.
Both of my hands are damaged.
Yes, absolutely. And we will even, just to make it worse for you, we could sign that for you.
Yes,
Or,
sign my hands.
yes, absolutely. Or you could go on to Amazon and you could order a version for a Kindle, for example. Or you could go on to Amazon and buy a paperback copy of this book.
Watch.
Or you could get a Life, whichever you prefer. Yeah.
Watch my hands, the well-known German illusionist and conjurer.
Stop it.
No, watch my hands.
Okay. Also featured in this book are,
A larger version here.
yes, of a werewolf-type dog thing, which we've just mentioned before. Something with a large tongue creeping out of a grave. And we also have, you can also see a satanic circle at the bottom. And this chap, who's, in the words of Blondie, I'm on E, is... Oh, I thought you were going to get your friend from on top there.
No,
It's a
I'm going to
black
get my friend
crow.
here.
He's getting a different type of friend.
Yes, this
His
will
old
also make
friend.
my crows black, but for a different reason.
Yes, absolutely. So there you are. That's book 2. We're going to do something like this, unfortunately, for book 3 when we finish it as well, but we're still working on it. What's the title of book 3, Howard?
Been robbed.
No, it's not.
Oh, sorry, yes, book 3 is going to be called Back on the Lash.
With Inspector Morose.
Have fun.
Anyway,
Thanks for watching.
any questions?
Anybody who knows a fashion designer, please let me know. I can wear some decent clothes for the next one.